my name is Dakota, and I'm a third-year medical student. Today, or whenever you're watching this, I am encouraging you to pursue medicine if you have any interest in doing that. And I'm going to talk about a few things that I think would be beneficial for really anybody to hear, but especially those who are on the path towards becoming a doctor. Now, I have to admit, I feel kind of ridiculous whenever I try to give advice or talk about things as if I have any idea what I'm doing. But I remind myself that as a third-year medical student, I am further along on a path that many people are still traversing. And when I think about what it was like to be back in their positions, I would have really appreciated to hear somebody talk about their experiences, even as a third-year medical student still on their way towards becoming a doctor. Because being a medical student is a very big part of that path towards becoming a physician. And I always felt like there was a bit of a veil covering that. And I would have really appreciated to have some insight into what it's actually like to be a medical student. To provide a little bit of ethos, to give what I'm saying a tiny bit of credibility, I have finished my first 2 years of medical school, which were my didactic years, where I would spend all day long just going to lectures and readings, trying to learn as much as I could about pathologies and diagnoses, just to get my foot in the door so I could be a part of the conversation. And then the last 6 months, the first half of my third year of medical school, has been in clinical rotations. So I've been getting as much clinical experience as I can, trying to learn what things actually look like in practice and to have my hand at diagnosing things. The rotations that I've completed so far are general surgery, orthopedic surgery, anesthesia, psychiatry, and family medicine. So anything that I talk about is kind of wrapped around those experiences. What I haven't done yet and can't speak to are internal medicine, both general internal medicine and then my elective, which will be pulmonology and critical care. I haven't done pediatric psychiatry yet. I have pediatrics to come, and I will be doing OBGYN soon. So again, as a third year medical student with 2.5 years of experience, I'm going to be covering some things that I think are important for anybody, and I would have definitely liked to hear, and maybe we'll even appreciate hearing when I look back on this video. The first piece of advice that I have is something that I think that everybody could benefit from hearing, but I'm going to put in the context of being a medical student, and that would be to check your ego. Now, choosing to frame this, it could either be don't become too prideful or always stay humble. But it's important because, especially in a field like medicine, knowledge is always growing and information is constantly evolving. So clinging to the things that you know may lead to you becoming obsolete, and as a result, you can bring others down with you. So as a result, it's really important to practice listening, because you never know what somebody else knows, and you never really know what they're going to say. So by listening to them, you could be taught something novel, or they could teach you a new standard of care about something that you already knew about, but there was something newer that came out on top of that. Now, particularly as a medical student, I think that it's important to not become upset when somebody else knows the answer to something. And that could be because you knew the answer and you didn't get to tell them that, or because they knew the answer and you didn't, and you think that it makes you look bad. Now that I'm in my clinical rotations and I'm working alongside students who are very much competing for the same positions as me in residencies and trying to look good for their attendings to get good letters and things like that, it's especially important to just be happy for other people's accomplishments. But I think even more important than that is something a lot more simple, and it's just the fact that we are all individuals with our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own emotions, and as a result, we wouldn't want for somebody else to make fun of us or be upset when we do something well. So why should we ever do that to anybody else? If somebody was able to answer a question right, that should be celebrated. And as a result, I'd hope that somebody would do the same for you eventually as well. So rather than missing out on learning opportunities or ruining relationships because you're trying to prove that you're the best or most knowledgeable, it's really important to practice listening and learning as much as you can from everybody, because everybody has something to teach you, and celebrating other people's accomplishments, because you will also have your time to shine. There's plenty of opportunities to show how much you know, and artificially creating that by answering every single question or cutting people off or not listening to others or trying to explain what you can tell them about something will ultimately lead to a stagnant and, dare I say, hostile environment. Now, this leads me to my next point, which is that it is a very scary thing to realize that everyone is constantly scrutinizing your every move. Now, as a medical student, that's terrifying because you're trying to perform well so that you can help patients, and you're trying to look good so that your preceptor, the physician that's looking over you, can rate you well and give you good ratings, maybe write you a good letter of recommendation. And of course, most importantly as a student, you're trying to learn. So trying to learn on top of all of this stress and anxiety about trying to look good and perform well and do the right thing can be very difficult. But the thing about learning is that it inherently requires you to acknowledge and admit what you don't know. I think that was something that was very liberating for me to realize, is that your educator, your preceptor, the physician that you're working with, they are scrutinizing your every action, but it's because they're trying to figure out where your knowledge ends so that they can pick it up from there and start teaching. Thinking about it this way and framing it like this really helped me because it alleviated a lot of the stress and anxiety that I had when I would feel as though they were watching my every move, because I realized that they weren't scrutinizing me in a way that was malicious. They were just trying to find the point at which they could start helping me. So my second piece of advice is to be prepared. And it doesn't take much. To get the most out of your learning in an environment where time is so important, it would be best not to waste any of that time floundering and struggling with trying to just recall the information. So if you know what surgery is going to be performed the next day, look up how the procedure works. If you know some of the complaints that the patients are going to come in and see you with, look up the possible diagnoses that you can work with them up for and the questions that you can ask for. Now, on some days, this is going to look really beautiful and elegant, and you're going to feel really studious because you're going to have the time to look up the procedures, look up the differential diagnoses, look up why you're doing it, look up how you're doing it. But on other days, it's not going to be so pretty. You're not going to have time, so the best that you'll be able to muster is a quick Google search and reading maybe the first and last lines of the first article that comes up. The wonderful thing about this is, by preparing, by even trying to prepare a little bit, you prime yourself, and subconsciously your brain will start pulling up the information that it already has and knows, so that when it comes to the point of your educator asking you questions and trying to figure out what you know and what you don't know, they can kind of pick up right where you don't know, or if they do kind of overlap with what you do know, it doesn't have as much overlap and they can get into the part where you're learning new information. With this one, it can feel very difficult because you're just juggling so many things. But the beautiful thing about this is that something is always better than nothing. I think one of the greater fortunes of being a medical student is the fact that these attendings and these residents are looking at you and truly they don't expect very much. They know that you're a medical student seeing these things for the first or maybe second time. And they know that as a result, you're not going to have a lot of knowledge of what to do or what to say. But what they will notice is that you're putting in a little bit of effort. So in preparing, not only are you ready to demonstrate what you know, but you're also going to make yourself look a little bit better because they're going to see that you're putting in that effort. And as a result, they're going to try to feed off of that and say like, oh, you know what? This person's really trying and I'm going to do my best to teach them as much as they can since they actually care. So yes, be prepared, even if it's only a little bit, because it doesn't take much to show that you're doing the effort. And on the best days, it can take you very far. And those are the best days. But what about the worst days? Because this is going to be a very demanding path, and I acknowledge that. There will be days where you can't focus, you can't get anything right, you can't study, you can't get yourself to do the things that you want to do to be as productive as possible. And to that I say, schedule in your fun. Historically, I've very much tended to be a very spontaneous person, so scheduling fun was not my idea of fun. But a strategy that I have found very effective towards maximizing my productivity is having designated periods of not productivity. I think this works for two reasons, that primarily for me at least, and that's number one being the fact that when I schedule in these times, it splits it methodically and strategically so that my productivity is maximized at its timed intervals and where I just know that I'm going to be the best. And also, secondarily, I think that having something to look forward to makes everything better. I've had weeks, especially during like my surgery rotation, where I have nothing to look forward to because it's like, man, I've got to go to this rotation for 12 hours. I'm going to go home and eat, and then I'm going to go to my rotation again for 12 hours. But scheduling in a little bit of fun, knowing that I'm going to have that to look forward to, makes it a lot better. Knowing that I'm going to listen to a new album on my way home and explore a new music artist does wonders for me. Knowing that at the end of the week, I'm going to go see some friends or I'm going to go try a new restaurant makes me feel better about getting through the week. Also, knowing when the next time I have to goof off is, it allows me to be more productive in that exact moment. When I started scheduling my fun, I realized just how much time I was wasting doing nothing in between my productivity. I kind of started to live by the fact that if I'm not doing something scheduled for fun, I'm always just going to be working. So as a result, I ended up being really productive in those longer periods of time just because I had something to look forward to in the future. So to that point, schedule your fun. And if you don't have anything scheduled to be fun, keep your head down and keep working. Okay, for my last point in this video, I'm going to really tie in some encouragement as to why, if you're even considering becoming a doctor or doing anything hard for that matter, you should just do it. I am a strong believer in the fact that you will become exactly who your imposter syndrome tells you that you are. How does that famous saying go? He who says that he can and he who says that he can't are both correct. It doesn't matter if you are the most qualified, most educated, most intelligent, most skilled, most physically fit person on this planet. If you don't believe that you can do it, then you're not going to do it. I will admit, I've had my fair share of imposter syndrome. But what I always like to tell people who are trying to pursue medical school and looking at how daunting it is to get in is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. As long as you keep working towards your goal, you're going to continuously improve, or you're going to continuously add things to your resume that are going to make you look better. And inevitably, eventually, you're going to get in. So if you walk around telling people and telling yourself that, oh, I'm never going to be good enough, or oh, I'm not good enough, they're going to believe you, and so are you. You're going to believe yourself. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm not good enough for it yet, but I will be, that's going to keep you working towards it, and then eventually you will be. And if you tell yourself, I am good enough now, you're going to believe that. And then anybody that you tell that, if you say it with that kind of conviction, they're going to believe you, and they're going to listen to what you have to say. Now, overcoming this imposter syndrome is something that is very difficult to do, but I think that there are two really good ways to go about doing that. The first way, the more hopeful way, and the way that works for a lot of people, is just that self-talk. Believe that you're going to be good enough and you'll become good enough. Tell yourself that you're going to become good enough and you're going to become good enough. And naturally, by doing that, you're going to keep working towards your goal, and you're going to see the things that you need to fix and do that until you are who you say that you are. That kind of hopefulness and almost blind motivation works for a lot of people, but it doesn't work for anybody. And there are going to be a lot of people that listen to that and be like, oh, that sounds ridiculous. And I think that I'm kind of part of that group. So what do you do if you can't just believe yourself or will yourself into becoming the person that you want to be? Well, prove to yourself that you are that person. An example that I have for myself is that I'm really bad at taking standardized exams. And I tell myself that all the time. But I proved to myself that I'm going to be prepared for this exam by taking practice tests and taking practice questions and rereading material so much it becomes impossible to deny, even to my biggest hater, which can sometimes be myself, that I'm going to not only pass but do well. I take the time to say all of this because I truly believe that anybody can do this, and it's not an easy path. It's not going to be easy for anybody, but if you really want it, you can do it. I don't want anybody watching this to ever not try because they feel like they couldn't do it. I think I just want you to decide, is it something that you want bad enough? Is it worth it to you to do all this work to get to that end goal? So even if you can't believe in yourself quite yet, find the people that will believe in you, because even though they can't take that big first step for you, they can encourage you until you are ready to take that big first step for yourself. Maybe I'm going to show how nerd I am for this one, but this is a huge anime reference if you get it. Believe in me, because I believe in you. To anybody who's still here, thank you for listening to everything that I have to say as a random third-year medical student talking to a camera right now. And I hope that whenever you watch this, it finds you at a good time, and that these are things that are beneficial for you in some way. Oh geez. I think that's it for the night. Thank you for listening to that. Can you see that? It is like 1:30 in the morning. What am I doing?